Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Remember when healthcare was supposed to be affordable? Pepperidge Farm remembers. A decade ago, the average family shelled out $9,733 for health insurance. Now, that number has skyrocketed to $15,704 in 2020. It's like adding another car payment, but instead of a new car, you avoid bankruptcy if you break a leg. You know things are bad when even employers are throwing their hands up and saying, we can't afford this healthcare thing either. More companies are ditching health insurance plans for their employees, leaving families to fend for themselves in the wild west of individual health insurance. In this system, having a heart is practically a liability. According to William Russell, the average American spends over $400,000 on healthcare. That's more than the median home price in most states. Financial struggles, the new normal? Let's rip the Band-Aid off, shall we? Most American families are struggling financially. A recent study found that insert shocking statistic about family financial struggles. Living direct deposit to overdraft fee with credit card debt to keep the lights on. It's a vicious cycle trapping millions of Americans. Labor conditions. It's not getting better. Remember when a job meant security, fair wages, and decent benefits? Yeah, me neither. Labor conditions in this country are about as appealing as a dumpster fire in a sewage plant. It's a real mess. The middle class. From comfortable to just scraping by. Remember when a middle-class job meant a comfortable life? Now a middle-class job means living direct deposit to overdraft protection. It's a game of financial Tetris, fitting bills, groceries, and the occasional treat into your budget. American debt, a staggering reality check. Specifically, the mountain of debt that the average American family is carrying around like a ball and chain. The average American household owes a staggering, insert shocking statistic about average household debt. Battling inflation, a full-time job. Remember when you could buy a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread without a small loan? Now Americans battle inflation, and spoiler alert, inflation is winning. Financial hardship. The evidence is everywhere. I know I'm painting a bleak picture, but don't just take my word for it. Every recent survey shows Americans are feeling the financial squeeze. For example, a recent poll by insert reputable source found insert shocking statistic about financial hardship. Cutting back, the new American pastime. Remember when retail therapy was a thing? CNBC recently released a study showing that most U.S. consumers are slamming the brakes on spending. It's because they literally can't afford to buy anything that isn't absolutely essential anymore. Offshoring, the middle-class job killer. Remember when Made in America meant something? Millions of middle-class jobs have been shipped overseas. And the worst part? Those jobs aren't coming back. The Great Resignation, a sign of the times. People are quitting their jobs in droves. The Great Resignation is a sign people are fed up. They're tired of low wages, bad benefits, and being treated like cogs in a machine. Boomerang generation, back to the nest. Remember when moving out was a rite of passage? Now, 52% of American adults aged 25 to 34 live with their parents. More than half of millennials are back at home. And it's not because they love doing laundry or their parents cooking. Credit card nation. Swiping our way to oblivion. We're addicted to credit. Credit cards are the duct tape holding the economy together. We use them for everything from groceries to vacations, and we're racking up debt faster than politicians make promises. The harsh reality for many families. Many American families are barely scraping by. Millions are living just one unexpected expense away from financial ruin. Food stamps were meant to be a safety net, not a way of life. But for many Americans, relying on food stamps is the norm. It's a sad indictment of our economy when millions can't afford to eat. We're the richest country, yet people go hungry. Remember when filling up your gas tank didn't require a second mortgage? Now, the average price of gasoline in the U.S. is $4.30 a gallon. Makes you want to trade in your car for a horse and buggy. You know things are bad when people resort to stealing gas, and I'm not talking about siphoning a gallon or two from a neighbor's car. I'm talking about organized crime rings drilling holes in gas tanks, stealing thousands of dollars worth of fuel. Remember when a job meant a living wage? Over the past 30 years, low-wage jobs in the U.S. have exploded. These jobs don't offer benefits, they don't pay a living wage, and they trap people in poverty. It's a race to the bottom, and the American worker is losing. Remember when you could turn on the lights without worrying about the cost? U.S. consumers spend a staggering $1.2 trillion a year on energy. That's trillion with a T. And the worst part? Energy costs are only going up and up. Remember a decade ago when the average American driver spent just $2,247 a year on gasoline? It might sound like a lot, but compared to today's prices, it's a steal. Makes you want to build a time machine, go back and buy a lifetime supply of gasoline, but then you'd worry about the price of plutonium, which is probably skyrocketing too. Remember the 2008 housing crisis? Millions of families risked losing their homes due to rising interest rates, stagnant wages, and a bonkers housing market. It's like musical chairs, but the music has stopped and there aren't enough chairs. Remember when college was actually affordable? Pepperidge Farm remembers? Back in 1978, the average annual cost of college tuition for public institutions was a measly $243. Today, the cost of college has skyrocketed to astronomical heights, leaving students drowning in debt before they even graduate. It's a crisis. We're living in a tale of two Americas. On one hand, the wealthiest 1% own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. On the other hand, the rest of us struggle to make ends meet, drowning in debt, left behind. The wealthiest 1% of Americans don't just have a lot of money, they have most of the money. They own over 50% of all stocks and bonds. The rest of us are just stuck going around the board, paying rent and hoping we don't land on boardwalk. Remember when CEOs were supposed to be leaders, not leeches? Yeah, me neither. In 2021, the average CEO made 351 times more than the average worker. It's like they're playing a game of apples and oranges, except the CEO gets a private jet for every apple, and the worker gets a rotten orange for every year of service. Remember when a hard day's work meant a fair day's pay? Real average hourly earnings, when adjusted for inflation, have been stagnant for 50 years. It's like we're running on a treadmill, working our butts off, but going nowhere fast. CEO pay skyrocketing while wages stagnate. Remember when CEOs were supposed to share the wealth? Me neither. While worker wages have stagnated for 50 years, CEO compensation has skyrocketed by 940%. It's the rich getting richer while the poor and middle class get left behind. Savings rates dwindling as expenses soar. Remember when saving money was a thing? Yeah, those days are gone, my friend. With soaring living expenses and stagnant wages, Americans are dipping into their savings just to get by and make ends meet. The American dream. For the 1% only, the American dream is looking less like a dream and more like a cruel joke for most Americans. If you're not in the top 1%, you're pretty much screwed, struggling to make ends meet, drowning in debt, and watching your dreams slip away. That was a whirlwind tour of the economic challenges facing American families today. Awareness is the first step towards change. Have you experienced these pressures firsthand? Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into important issues.